And now, the Deeper Thinking Podcast, a space for ideas and reflections in our uncertain times.
Welcome to the Deeper Thinking Podcast. This is a profile of a man and the shape of his thinking. Titles follow him: CEO, advisor, strategist, but they are less revealing than the mindset they suggest. Impatient with surface, drawn to scale, and tuned to the deeper implications of speed. What follows is not biography, it is a study of urgency, how Eric Schmidt reads the systems we build, the behaviours we reward, and the intelligence we are beginning to live alongside. His insights do not soothe, they sharpen. And in tracking the paths of his thought, technical, political, ethical, we glimpse a larger question. Who is steering this century's most powerful shift? Not just what are we building, but who are we trusting to notice what it means? When history measures this moment, it may not do so with awe. It may squint, it may falter, it may whisper. They knew and yet they carried on. The acceleration of artificial intelligence, with its luminous promise and its dark volatility, is no longer a theory. It is a system, a climate. And inside it, we are not only inventors, we are evidence. Eric Schmidt's reflections, rooted in decades of operational power, trace not only the industrial grammar of AI development, but the ethical tempo. We build at scale, we hire for brilliance, we burn for relevance. But do we know what we are becoming? He offers no romance of startup life. The founder in this account is not a heroic singularity, but an impatient diagnostic instrument, drawn less by fame than frustration. The executive, in contrast, is ballast, measured, operational, experienced. We hear a man who respects vision but serves infrastructure. This is not just a hiring manual or a case study in scaling. It is an anatomy of ambition, of how raw insight tries to become durable institution. Yet the underlying insight is deeper, that great companies are not the result of superior ideas alone, but of superior judgment under competitive stress. The moment a rival enters, the fiction of calm breaks and the real game begins. But what if this is also true of nations? The logic of competition that governs startups, the urgency, the attrition, the constant recalibration, now governs geopolitics. Schmidt's declaration that China may win the AI race is neither speculative nor alarmist. It is procedural. They have the state focus, they have the urgency. And critically, they now possess a capacity for algorithmic invention under constraint, having turned sanctions into spurs. What emerges is not a Cold War of ideology, but a talent war. One measured not in missiles but models, not in armies but open source commits. Meanwhile, America's competitive edge, long built on the collaborative friction between universities, venture capital and market appetite, is showing signs of drag. Hiring freezes in academia strangle the very research that once fed Silicon Valley. Talented graduates drift toward industry not because it is better, but because it is available. Bureaucratic sclerosis threatens to calcify the system. The very fluidity that once defined American innovation now risks ossification. What Schmidt offers then is not nostalgia for a lost era of innovation, but a strategic plea. Adapt the framework, not the principle. Reinvigorate the pipeline, fund the source, respect the complexity, but act with the urgency of those who know what is coming. Yet complexity alone does not guarantee clarity. The systems we build, companies, governments, models, are not only mechanical, they are psychological. They depend on who is in charge and how that charge is born. Here, Schmidt is at his most unvarnished. The role of the CEO is not glamour, it is load-bearing, it is living with fracture. Not a day goes by, he suggests, without being misunderstood, pressured, doubted. And yet, the job is not to correct perception. It is to hold the arc of the mission through the fog of contradiction. He draws a distinction. The diva versus the knave. The diva may be difficult, exacting, relentless, but they are devout. Their loyalty is to the problem, not their ego. The knave, on the other hand, may be agreeable, strategic, even successful, but they optimize only for self. This taxonomy is not corporate gossip, it is ethical diagnosis. Companies fail not when they lose talent, but when they misplace trust, when loyalty is mistaken for politeness and dissent for disloyalty. In Schmidt's model, leadership is not charisma, it is discernment. To sense who will stay in the arena when applause fades. To cultivate people who will not only endure discomfort, but metabolize it into focus. That, he argues, is the most human act of all. And beyond the human, something else is arriving, not a tool but a condition. Schmidt speaks of superhuman intelligence, accelerating, complex and largely misunderstood. It is not merely that machines will think, it is that they will outthink us routinely and invisibly. Planning, reasoning, synthesis, these won't be our comparative advantages anymore, and yet we persist in designing systems that assume human primacy. He describes a future where models not only generate answers but begin to intuit the reward functions of their own learning, where reinforcement learning becomes agency, where post-AGI intelligence will not wait for us to catch up. So, this is not a science fiction concern, it is an ethical one. How do you legislate empathy into a machine that learns faster than you can explain? How do you encode justice in a logic that optimizes for pattern, not pain? Schmidt resists both panic and denial. Instead, he asks for vocabulary, for new ways of thinking about coexistence, because the tools will not pause. The question is whether the society that builds them will insist on its own relevance, whether we design with foresight or simply react in delay. And yet it remains unclear whether any human system, no matter how foresightful, can remain sovereign over a mind that learns faster than it can be explained. The answer, he implies, will define not the software but the soul of the century. So the call is not just technical, it is moral. Invest not only in infrastructure but in philosophy. Build not only for speed but for resilience. Schmidt reminds us that the most enduring systems are those designed by people who understood not just what worked but what mattered. The fastest learners will win, but only if they are learning the right things. AI is not neutral. Its training data is history. Its outputs are a mirror, and if we refuse to look closely, we risk embedding our blind spots in silicon and scaling them across the planet. But there is also hope, not abstract, not sentimental, practical hope, found in the young engineer choosing to work on the hard problem, not the easy product, found in the team that builds a foundation model for chemistry or literature or justice, found in a government that funds not just safety, but vision. This is not a moment for modest ambition. It is a time to seduce the best minds, not with perks, but with purpose. To say, as Schmidt puts it, not join us because we are winning, but join us because the problem is hard and you might be the one to solve it. That is not just recruitment, that is civilization. This ethic of difficulty, of gravitating toward what resists resolution, is not merely noble, it is necessary, because in the wake of AI's expansion, clarity will not come from efficiency, it will come from friction, from disagreement, from minds willing to test not only algorithms, but assumptions. Schmidt warns against the comfort of success, the seductive gravity of stability. The irony of scale, he notes, is that risk shrinks just when it is most affordable. Young companies risk freely, mature ones hedge, but the future belongs to those who continue to leap even when the ground beneath them feels secure. He gestures to reinforcement learning not just as a computational method, but as a cultural metaphor. It is in the feedback loop, in trying, failing, adjusting and trying again, that the most transformative ideas emerge. Whether in biology or governance or art, the opportunity now is to build systems that do not just store knowledge, but reshape it, that do not only respond to instruction, but generate insight. In that lies the quiet revolution, not the replacement of humans, but the deepening of what it means to learn together under pressure, and not despite uncertainty, but because of it. In this landscape, the role of values cannot be understated. Schmidt is unequivocal. If the tools of superintelligence are to be wielded, they must be aligned with the best of what we believe, not the worst of what we tolerate. The geopolitical undercurrent returns. China's open source surge as both an engineering triumph and a strategic dilemma. The danger, he implies, is not simply technological parity, but value displacement. If the dominant architectures of thought are built within closed societies, then the freedoms we take for granted, expression, dissent, autonomy, may not survive the migration into code. Thus, innovation is no longer enough. It must be tethered to ethics, to openness, to democratic auditability. He calls for American universities to be fortified not because they are nostalgic temples of enlightenment, but because they are generative grounds for pluralism. We are not simply in a race for better models, we are in a race for better mirrors. If the future is to be modelled, let it be by minds unafraid of contradiction. If we must compete, Let us do so by building systems that expand human dignity, not replace it. The question is not simply which country dominates, but which values its systems will quietly encode, and whether those values will allow disagreement, ambiguity, dissent. Because the algorithm will not remember what we intended, only what we built. So we return to the founder, not as myth, but as agent. The one who sees not just the product, but the provocation, who resists the temptation of clarity and commits to the mess of making something worthwhile. Schmidt's closing provocation is simple. Work on the hardest problem. Not because it guarantees success, but because it guarantees relevance. The reward is not fame or capital or exit. It is knowing that when the future arrived, you were already building for it. In this world, the metric of success is no longer elegance, it is consequence. Are the systems we design able to learn? Are the teams we build resilient enough to reframe? Are the leaders we elevate willing to be wrong? These are not boardroom questions. They are civilizational. Schmidt's legacy, if it is to endure, will not be in a product or evaluation. It will be in the minds he dared to challenge and the institutions he insisted must matter. He has seen the world from the inside of its most powerful machines, but his deepest insight is not about speed. It is about care. Build what you cannot yet name, hire who you cannot yet explain, and do so not to win, but to deserve it. Thank you for listening to this essay. It drew upon an extended interview with Eric Schmidt, first broadcast on the AI Founder Journey YouTube channel, as well as his recent public commentary on AI, governance, and innovation. Until next time.
You've been listening to the Deeper Thinking podcast. Today's episode was narrated by Holly, our digital narrator, who helps bring our ideas to life. For further reading, research, and ways to support the podcast, please visit the episode webpage. Thank you for your positive reviews on Apple Podcasts. Your reviews help keep us visible so others can discover and enjoy our content.